Ever since Joseph Smith received the golden plates and translated the Book of Mormon, people have wondered where the Promised Land is. Where did the Nephites live? Where is the city of Zarahemla? Where is the land of Zarahemla? Hi, my name is David Reed. I'm an independent researcher, and I've been researching for many years related to evidence related to the Book of Mormon. I'm the author of a book called Face of a Nephite, which looks at the DNA evidence related to the Book of Mormon, and which finds that the DNA evidence is consistent with what you would expect to see for a true history of a real people, and that the DNA evidence does support the Book of Mormon. In this video, I'm going to look at the geography for the Book of Mormon, and I'm going to give two reasons why Ohio is the land of Zarahemla, and the Chillicothe, Ohio area is the area where the great city of Zarahemla once stood. I know it's a bold claim, and I don't expect that many of you will immediately want to accept or agree with me on that. I hope that you'll continue to look at and listen to the videos that I do. I'm going to do a number of videos related to evidence for the Book of Mormon. I'll also have geography stuff that looks at a revised model for the geography of the Book of Mormon with Ohio as the area of Zarahemla, and look at how that affects and creates a new geography, and also how that helps the Book of Mormon geography to match archaeological sites that we can actually take a look at and see what evidence is there and learn about the people through that. But in this video, I'm going to focus on two reasons why Ohio is the land of Zarahemla, and the Chillicothe, Ohio area is where the city of Zarahemla once stood. And the first reason is fortifications. So in the Book of Mormon, Captain Moroni is described as having the Nephites build fortifications to fortify their cities and lands in preparation for war. This is in 72 BC, approximately, according to the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon describes those fortifications in great detail. It also describes not only how they were made, but where they were made. And those are the types of things, those fortifications as described, are the type of things that could still exist and do still exist and can be found. So let's take a look at what the Book of Mormon says in terms of the fortifications and what we can learn from geography from that. So I'm going to turn first to, this is Alma chapter 48. And we're going to first look at verses 8 and 9. And this is talking about Moroni preparing the people and starting to fortify the cities and lands round about. It says, "Yea, he had been strengthening the armies of the Nephites and erecting small forts or places of resort, throwing up banks of earth round about to enclose his armies, and also building walls of stone to encircle them about, round about their cities and the borders of their lands, yea, all around about the land. And thus he did fortify and strengthen the land which was possessed by the Nephites." So in those two verses, it talks about the manner of building them, throwing up banks of earth, throwing up heaps of earth, digging around the cities, also places of resort where they could resort to defend themselves. And it says they did this in the lands possessed by the Nephites. Now, turning then to the next chapter, Alma 49, it continues in Alma 49, verses 8 and 13. It says, "When the Lamanites came upon them, the Nephites had been prepared in a manner which never had been known among the children of Lehi." Now, this referred to both the types of armor that they had and also the fortifications. So this indicates to us that the types of fortifications, this manner of the armor as well, but the types of fortification in terms of building up the banks of earth, the heaps of earth around the cities and the places of resort, was something that was unknown prior to that time to them. And so that's another detail that may be helpful in terms of identifying these fortifications in geography and testing the Book of Mormon in that area. And then continuing in Alma 49, verse 13, it says, "For Moroni had fortified or had built forts of security for every city and all the land round about." So it's for all of the cities that had these fortifications. And then continuing in Alma chapter 50, verse 1, again it says, "In digging up heaps of earth round about all the cities throughout all the land which was possessed by the Nephites." So we have multiple references confirming the same thing of the building up heaps of earth, banks of earth around the cities through all the lands of the Nephites. So it's significant earth movement effort, significant things. And we know from the archaeology that these types of earthworks can still exist because we see them. We see them in the Ohio area with all of the earthworks that are dated back to the Book of Mormon timeframes. So we can see that this is the type of thing that did still exist, although in the last 200 years, with all of the agricultural plowing and development, most of these have since been destroyed. But at least to the 1800s, when the places became more settled, at least up to then, many of these earthworks were still there and existed. Alma 50, verse 11, it also continues a little bit more detail. It says, "And they said they fortifying the line between the Nephites and the Lamanites, between the land of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi, the Nephites possessing all the land northward." So it says the fortifications were all throughout the land of Zarahemla, and also the area between the land of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi. And then there's one other geographic clue about these fortifications and the information you can get from them, which comes in Alma chapter 60. And this is when Captain Moroni writes the letter to Pahoran, the chief governor of the land. And he writes to Pahoran in verse 1 of chapter 60, he says, the epistle to Pahoran in the city of Zarahemla. And then later in verse 19, in talking to Pahoran, he says, "What, why are you neglecting us?" So on. But he says, "Or is it because ye are in the heart of our country and ye are surrounded by security?" So it identifies the city of Zarahemla in particular as being in the heart of the Nephites' country and surrounded by security. So from this Book of Mormon text, we can identify three things. One, the time that the fortifications were built. Two, the manner in which the fortifications were built. And three, the location in which the fortifications were built. The time was in the 1st century BC, approximately starting 72 BC, according to the Book of Mormon. The manner that they were built was the building up heaps of earth and banks of earth around cities and at places of resort for defensive purposes, and also using walls of stone. And then the place that occurred, it was very clear that it says it's throughout all of the land of Zarahemla, all of the cities in the land of Zarahemla, and then also to the line between the land of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi. So if we can identify where these fortifications were, we can identify the land of Zarahemla. And potentially also the city of Zarahemla, since the city of Zarahemla was identified as being in the center of that country and surrounded by security. So for the last several years, I've spent a lot of time looking at where can we find fortifications that fit the descriptions and timeframes that are described in the Book of Mormon. And they do exist. And I found over 24 of them. There's actually quite a number of them. Now, the Hopewell had lots and lots of mounds and also a number of earthworks. Many of those mounds were burial mounds and don't have anything to do with fortification. For the earthworks, many of them are ceremonial, and you can tell they're ceremonial by the manner in which they're constructed, and they're like perfect circles and squares and things, and not in defensive locations. But there are also large earthwork sites and Hopewell sites that are in defensive locations and are encompassed, not in perfect circles or things like that, but in a defensive manner with the ditches and the high walls that are described in the Book of Mormon. And then also you can find Hopewell sites that are cities in my view, that in the mainstream archaeology, many will say, oh no, they don't want to accept the high levels of population that the Hopewell had. And that'll be a separate video that I'll address separately about the high population levels and how that can be proven, and how that fits the Book of Mormon, and also the cities. So again, with the Hopewell, you also have cities with walls built around them, like was described in the Book of Mormon. So we're going to take a look at those, and I'm going to pause just a second to pull up the map. Okay, so I pulled up the fortifications, and as you can see, I have here in a Google map, in a Google Earth app, I've found and put red place marks for each of the fortifications that fit the descriptions in the Book of Mormon. And there are, like I said, there are more than 24 of them, and by far the majority of them, particularly all of the large ones, all of the ones that encompass cities and would handle large populations and very large armies, all of those fit in the Ohio area, particularly the southern Ohio area. And then a few south of that, which I interpret as being between the land of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi. And then there are also some fortifications on the north part, at the north part of Ohio and into western New York. And I'll address this in a separate video. Those fortifications are much smaller. They don't encompass cities generally. They're small and seem more like outposts or fortification lines, as opposed to a protection of the population and cities. But those dots in red for the fortifications are the only known fortifications in the Americas that fit the description and time frame described in the Book of Mormon. Now, there are other types of fortifications that existed anciently elsewhere in the Americas. And for example, in Mesoamerica, there were some fortifications that included stone walls, but not with the digging up the banks of earth and heaps of earth around cities and at places of resort, and with the right time frame, as is found in the eastern United States by the Hopewell and in these locations. And so, as you see from this, with the fortifications identifying Ohio as the land of Zarahemla, clearly they're designed to protect around that Ohio area. And the city of Zarahemla fits there in the Chillicothe, Ohio area as a location that was in the heart of the Nephites' country and surrounded by security. So I'm going to pause briefly and take off the map. Okay. Now, okay, and then now the second reason that supports the Ohio area as the land of Zarahemla is that the Ohio area was the center of the Hopewell civilization. And America was clearly the land of promise. The Hopewell were clearly the Nephites. And as such, once you accept the Hopewell as the Nephites, then the Ohio area must be Zarahemla. The logic goes a little bit like this, and I'm going to pause and pull up my logic here. So here's my logic. The first step is to recognize that the promised land includes the United States of America. And I know that some of the people that accept the Mesoamerican theory, they disagree with this, but let me just hear me out. So as you know, the Book of Mormon has prophecies and promises that point towards the United States as a fulfillment of that prophecy. Also, the Book of Mormon describes the hill Cumorah, and Joseph Smith received the plates at the hill, which he identified as the hill Cumorah. It was a real physical burial. When Joseph Smith received the plates, he had to clear the stuff off the large stone. He had to pick up the stone. There was an ancient-looking depository for him with stone slabs and a kind of cement. So it's a very clear, a real physical ancient burial. And Joseph Smith, and according to accounts by those closest to him as well, the hill Cumorah was identified as being that hill, and the hill Cumorah is something that's in the Book of Mormon. So I understand that there are arguments that people have to the contrary, but for me, it's very clear that the Promised Land includes the United States and had to include the hill Cumorah. So once you get to that step, then if the Promised Land was in the United States of America and included that area where the hill Cumorah was as part of the Nephite lands, then the civilization of the Nephites and Lamanites has to have been the Hopewell civilization. And that's just a matter of the science and archaeology, because that is the only option in the United States and the Eastern United States at that time frame. That was the civilization that occupied the Eastern United States completely. Its culture spread throughout. There's no other option there. So if America was where the Promised Land was, then the Hopewell were the Nephite and Lamanite civilization. And I think most Heartlanders would accept that part of it. But then the next and final step of the logic is that once you identify the Hopewell as being the right civilization, which does fit and can fit the Book of Mormon, well, then the land of Zarahemla has to be Ohio. And the reason why is because for the Hopewell civilization, Ohio was the clear center of that civilization. It was the center for trade. It was the center for the trails. It's where the highest concentration of artifacts and earthworks and population and everything was. It was very clear that for the Hopewell civilization, its center and nucleus was that Chillicothe, Ohio area, which means that if the Hopewell were the Nephites, that is the land of Zarahemla. In particular, the Chillicothe, Ohio area is the city of Zarahemla. So just taking a couple of things to show what I'm talking about, and I'll have other videos that go a little bit more into the Chillicothe area in particular. For example, this is a map of Indian trails and towns in the 1700s. Chillicothe is this area here, and it's all of the Native American trails are like a hub and spoke surrounded with this location. Further, if you go to like the Hopewell sites, and you'll look at the trading networks, they call them trading networks, but really it was more resource acquisition than trade, because they aren't finding a lot of trade happening at the places where they access and retrieve these materials. But you have materials from all of these different locations all coming to that Chillicothe area, with Chillicothe being the center of the trade and resource acquisition. There's an archaeologist named Brad Lepper, and I just put a quote on here showing as well, indicating again, and there's many statements and confirmations of this type, but Ohio, during the Hopewell area, Ohio was the nexus and the cultural center for Eastern North America. Okay, and we'll go ahead and pause and stop that share. Okay. So recognizing that the Hopewell, where the Nephites and the Chillicothe area was the center of the Hopewell civilization, so it has to fit the city of Zarahemla, that opens up a lot of information for us. It provides helps provide a revised geography for the Book of Mormon, and I'll have separate videos exploring that, because once you take that, then it starts to fall into place, the various archaeological sites and where they fit into the Book of Mormon. Now, if you aren't convinced of Ohio being Zarahemla, that's okay. I still encourage you to look at the videos and see the other evidence that I bring out about these sites and how it relates to the Book of Mormon, because I think you'll find it faith promoting, inspiring, enlightening, and fascinating, and you'll likely will find it to fit in your own theory of geography related to the Book of Mormon as well. But I'm convinced that the Ohio area was a Zarahemla area, and so I'll continue to discuss that. So those are the two reasons that Ohio is Zarahemla. I look forward to sharing more information with you and exploring this. If you're interested in this content, I encourage you to hit the like and notifications and subscribe to the channel so that you can receive the content. And also it helps spread the channel and get to more people to see that. And I look forward to sharing that with you. Thanks.